Logan the Layman Gamer here. Uh, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is coming out, and I figured I'd do a video where I'm playing another game. This is another one of my favorite games. I used to play this a ton when I was a kid. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about Sonic while we're playing Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I'm only gonna play the first half of the game, not Sonic and Knuckles. Ugh, I love this soundtrack so much. These games are so good. Soundtrack in this one in particular is mwah, chef's kiss. Love it. I only wish that Michael Jackson had stuck around to finish it. Let's do no save. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do... I don't think I'm going to get the Chaos Emeralds, at least not on this go-through, just because multitasking, doing the special stages, and talking... well, let's just say I'd be losing a lot. I'm normally pretty good at the special stages. I can usually get supersonic uh, before I finish the second zone. Other thing to note is that I was pretty awesome at Castlevania when I played it the other day. This game I probably will not be so great, even though I do play this game a lot. Well, let's talk a little bit about this game. Came out in 1994, uh, all across the planet. I don't think that there was... I mean, there were months difference. I know, notably, uh, in America, it came out in February, and they declared it Hedgehog Day. I don't know if it was... I don't know if... it's February 2nd that it came out. I'm not sure if that's Groundhog's Day or not. That's one of those holidays I really don't care to know anything about. But it was initially a much longer game, but because of time and money, I'm assuming, and also cartridge space, that's probably the big one. It was split into two parts. This Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and then Sonic and Knuckles, which came out I think later that year. I never owned this game. Uh, I don't know if it was just because it was expensive or what the deal was, and I didn't even know that many people who owned this either. Ah, rats. I had a neighbor who owned it, and I always wanted to borrow it from him, but he usually wanted some sort of leverage. So yeah, that didn't happen too often. And I had cousins that owned this game, who I used to play it at their house, but yeah, I didn't get this game. I didn't own my own copy of this until it was in the 2000s. The GameCube had their Sonic Mega Collection, which is what I played it on. And it's funny because I do remember, as a kid, I remember hearing about Supersonic, having no idea really what that was, because I had never seen it in person for many years until uh, until a guy that my sister had been dating at the time, her boyfriend's younger brother, owned this game, and he let me borrow it, and he had everything unlocked. So I got to see Supersonic for the first time, and I was like, it blew my mind. It was the coolest thing. And of course, I don't think Dragon Ball had come out yet, so the... No! Ah, balls. Yeah, you can see how much of a scrub I am at this game. Gosh, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, it just blew my mind how cool it was to play as that character, and I never got tired of it. This is one of those games I really don't get tired of playing it. It's kind of like well, Castlevania, GoldenEye. Just games that I just keep coming back to, and sometimes I will play them over and over and over again, like in short space of time. Like I picked this game back up a couple weeks ago, and I've just been playing through it over and over and over again, actually trying to refine my skills so I could do a good run of this. And of course, what happens? I die like 5 seconds into this first boss, but suffice it to say, this will not be as an impressive feat of my gaming prowess as Castlevania was. Growing up, Sonic the Hedgehog, that was my guy. Like I loved these games. Sonic Spinball was my first my first Sega game. It actually came with my Genesis, and it's the first video game I ever beat, actually. Very challenging game. The mechanics on it are not the best, although I don't really have much of a problem with it. It's funny because playing it as a kid, I didn't think anything of it. It's just, oh, it's a hard game. But I think now, as an adult, looking at it, it's like, okay, yeah, this needed to be tweaked a little bit better. But it's a fun game. I like it a lot, and it's another one that I still go back to. But loved Sonic the Hedgehog. I used to play as Sonic the Hedgehog on the playground, and when I could, I would watch the cartoon, although I don't think I ever really knew what time it came on, so it was like occasional thing. I didn't really watch ABC. I think that was part of the problem. I was a Fox Kids guy. But I liked the Saturday morning cartoon. I did not like the slapsticky one. Like, even as a kid, like, I liked it insofar as it was Sonic the Hedgehog, so I enjoyed it for that, but I didn't like that it was silly. I wanted I wanted a cartoon that was more like this, where he's like fighting a guy who's transforming animals into robots, and something that was a little bit darker. And the Saturday morning cartoon, I don't think that it has aged well. I know it has a lot of fans, but it feels a little bit like it took too much from Star Wars and not enough from Indiana Jones, which I feel like Sonic's more like Indiana Jones. You got him fighting against an army to recover some mystical artifact, and he's going through temples and outrunning traps and stuff like that. And yeah, it feels much more like Indiana Jones. And then there was the comic that Archie put out, which was kind of a hybrid between the two cartoons. It had the characters and scenarios of the Saturday morning cartoon, but it was also kind of goofy, like the other one. And although the tone for that changed a little bit, it still was kind of silly for a good chunk of its run. Mostly, I think, when Ken Penders was running it. But I really like the Archie comic. It's enjoyable. I would argue that the storyline is much better on the comic than it's ever been for the games themselves. I think that I don't know what it is exactly. I mean, there's some dark stuff in Sonic Adventure, like with the whole thing with the echidnas and chaos. I just don't think that it took full advantage of the material in the way it should have. And maybe that's okay, just because the comics, they're their own thing. They can afford to spend a lot of time on interactions and stuff like that, and Sonic games need to favor an interactive element. A Sonic RPG might be kind of cool, though, actually, when I think about it. I'm not much of an RPG gamer, but And then there was and I, well, I should say, I didn't get into the Archie comic books until, gosh, they were probably almost done. They had those reprints, those little thin paperback reprints, and that's kind of how I got into the comics, because I didn't really read them much in the 90s, unless I had a friend that would have them or whatever. But I got into the comics, later with those paperbacks, and I enjoyed them. I liked them quite a bit, and I still go back and reread them from time to time. I probably a month or two ago, I was rereading the Sonic Quest miniseries, which is kind of a retelling of this game. But what I was going to say before I backtracked, there was another comic series that ran in Europe from Fleetway. It's a separate publishing company. They had a magazine called Sonic the Comic. I think it was weekly. And they were shorter comics, like maybe a few pages. And it was more serialized. And I like those a lot too. Um, they're probably closer to the games than Archie's, just in terms of visual aesthetic. You have more of the loop-de-loops and the checkered landscape and things like that, and even the badniks. And it's not. I mean, it's so silly, but not to the same extent as the early Archie comics were. And there's some cool storylines in that, and even like I feel like the adaptations of the games were probably a little bit more true to the games too, because I remember there was a cool thing. I have this distinct image of where you had Mecha Sonic from Sonic and Knuckles, and he's on top of the Master Emerald, and I don't think we ever got that in. Well, Mecha Sonic in general played a larger part in the Fleetway comics. He was they called him Metallics in that continuity, but there was like a whole bunch of them, and I think there was sort of like a collective consciousness, sort of like the Borg, and yeah, so he made for a good like secondary antagonist. There was more villains, I think, too, than the Archie comics, because I'm trying to think, they had Robotnik obviously, and then Nagus, and I'm sure there's probably somebody else, but I'm not thinking of anything offhand. Oh, here we go. That's another thing I think with the games where other media have done a better job is with Robotnik. He's a little too buffoonish, I feel, in the games. I remember as a kid, particularly with these games, where he really felt like a credible threat, whereas everything in the Sonic Adventure on, he's kind of a big baby and sort of incompetent, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's not entirely true. Come on. Here we go. No, I don't want you anymore. Okay. And there's not enough villains in the Sonic the Hedgehog games. Like, main villains, I should say. Robotnik has always been the primary antagonist. Like, even with Mario, you don't just have Bowser. You've got Wario. You've got... Is it Tatanga? I can't remember. He was an alien. He was in Super Mario Land. Wart. I mean, all of one game. But who was the bad guy in Super Mario RPG? Because it wasn't Bowser, because Bowser's part of your party. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I feel like a new bad guy for a Sonic game would be cool. I don't think there's ever been a game where Robotnik hasn't been the main antagonist, unless it's one of the side games. Which, admittedly, I've not played every Sonic game. I'm mostly an aficionado of the 2D games. Sonic Mania. Holy crap, that game is amazing. That is a really fun game. I wish that I wish they'd make another one soon, a follow-up. I feel like Sega sort of begrudgingly allowed that game to be made because they don't really do anything with it. We had the DLC stuff with Ray and Mighty, and that's cool. I really liked those additions. It gave game some more replay value. Oh, in the Encore mode, which is fun. It kind of gives you a new way to play through the game again. Love that little animation. That was the other thing. What I loved about Sonic was he was cool. He had the attitude. That was... You know, I distinctly remember having this photo that I took where I had my finger up, and it's just like so... it's so cringy to look at that picture. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing in that photo. It's like, ugh, gosh. There's so many things when you're a kid that you do, and you're like, you think that you're being clever or cool or whatever, and you look back at it, and it's like, ugh, why did I do that? I have, like, physical reactions to that stuff. Like, I feel myself, like, squirming and withdrawing into my figurative shell. Come on. Oh, come back, you. Whatever. I have no idea how well the music is piping in on here. I went without music for the last video just because it was hard for me to focus, but I figured I'd give it a try this time. The key is finding sort of a balance where I can make sure that my voice is being heard and being able to hear the music, you guys being able to hear the music, and also me being able to focus. Come on. No. Always holding out on that one. There we go. Not that one. Although, I do like those. Nope. There we go. Best item in the game. I've had this thought before about Nintendo and Sega are finally... They're no longer competition. At least not in the sense of consoles. Oh, man. I should have been a little more cautious. I really want a proper Sonic Mario crossover game. None of this Olympic Games crap. It's like every time those games come out, I'm like, oh, what a perfectly good waste of a crossover. And I know people say, oh, it's, man, losing my focus. People are saying, oh, it's because they're too different. It'd be hard to accommodate the gameplay styles for crossover. No, I don't buy it. The people that say that are the people that don't have enough imagination. I think it could be done. They're both platformers. A lot of in terms of gameplay, they are very similar. Yes, Sonic is a faster game, but they both require power-ups. They both, have, as I said, platforming, working against a clock, collecting coins or rings in this case. You jump on enemies. You get different item. I already said power ups. Never mind. But there's bosses. No, I think you could. And actually, what would be interesting would be to have a game, have that game where you have the characters in the other character's world. So we'll say Sonic in the Mushroom Kingdom. It's like, okay, well, how does he respond? Like, how do his gameplay mechanics function in the Mushroom Kingdom? Like, what happens when Sonic gets a fire flower? Like, maybe he doesn't just shoot fireballs. Maybe it's like like that. What I just did, or like, I don't know. It could be anything. Or not Sonic, Mario with the Chaos Emeralds, or Sonic with a cape. Like, there's a. I mean, you could easily just have, they do the same thing. It's like, no. You're not being creative enough. Come up with some interesting ideas. You could easily make it into its own thing. I think it's something that fans have wanted for a since the '90s. When we were debating, you know, man, why do I suck so much right now? Probably because I'm talking. Yeah, Sonic and Mario. I should add that prior to my discovery of Sonic the Hedgehog, come on, I was a huge fan of Mario, and I still am. I should add that too. If they make a Mario, well, yeah, they are making a Mario movie. I take that back. Was it Illuminated that's making it? Well, when that comes out, assuming it's good, I'll probably give that a review, and maybe I'll do a playthrough of maybe Super Mario Brothers 3. That's probably my favorite in the series. It's kind of funny because both of these respective franchises, the third game is my favorite. There we go. That's how you do it. And here comes the zone that, as a child, was the bane of my existence because I could never get past. Well, if you've played, if you know, you know. If you don't know, well, you'll see. That's not what I wanted. Huh. There we go. I should add. I keep using that phrase. I probably shouldn't. This particular version of Sonic 3 I'm playing is a ROM hack. It's called Sonic 3 Complete, and it has a bunch of little gameplay features that are not present in the initial release. Namely, the controlling Tails and using him for an assist. That is not a function that was in the '94 game. It's very helpful. But it's a little tricky too, because sometimes Tails doesn't want to cooperate. Oh, something about this music. So, I mentioned Michael Jackson earlier, I think. Pretty sure I brought him up. He worked on this game, coming up with several of the tracks, although he didn't take credit for it. I should say, unofficially, he did not work on this game, but there's evidence to suggest otherwise. And if you listen to some of these tracks in this game, they are very similar to stuff that MJ put out much later. This is one of them. There's a little bit of stuff in it that's kind of similar to a song Jam, like the like that's That's straight out of Jam. Also, stuff like I should say, if you listen to his album Dangerous, good album by the way, a lot of stuff from Sonic 3, you can kind of hear its DNA in that album. Stuff with like sound effects of broken glass, the do 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 like that. Those are both present. There was another song, the end credits song for this showed up in another piece of music. I think it's the piece of music itself. I think it's slowed, like a slowed down version of the end credits. I don't know what the name of the track is. It's got Moscow in the title. Admittedly, I'm not a huge follower of Michael Jackson's work. I like his music, but I'm not a fan per se. Come on, come on, come on. This is another thing I would like to point out about what makes this game good is the bosses. There's a little bit a change in strategy for some of them. Like with that boss, you can't just jump on him until he explodes. You actually have to have his attack used against him. Oh, and this is also the this is the first mainline Sonic game where there is a boss in every zone or every act. Prior to that, you had it's like every 2 or 3 acts you'd face off with Robotnik, but not so in this one. You get a little robot boss you gotta fight in between, which is cool, and they get their own little boss music, which I should say I prefer the boss music from this game to Sonic and Knuckles. Which the one downside with Sonic and Knuckles hooked up to Sonic 3, even though I really like that, is that you get musical changes to this game. So Knuckles' theme is the theme he uses in Sonic and Knuckles, not the one in Sonic 3. So they replace it with that one, and also the boss music, the first act bosses. Except for Hydro City Zone, but that's because that was a mistake made in the game. I suppose since I'm playing this because of the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie coming out, I should talk a little bit about that movie. I'll admit I was probably, like most people, not enthusiastic at the idea of a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. My first thought was, well, it's about, I don't know, a couple decades too late. It's like, I don't know why they didn't do a Sonic the Hedgehog game in the movie in the 90s. It seems like they could have done an animated film, like maybe something in the style of the Saturday morning show, or even, and I actually think this would have been better, something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where you have Sonic and Tails and whatever animal characters, you have them animated against live action, and then you get like Danny DeVito to play Dr. Robotnik, which I still think he should have played Dr. Robotnik for the new one. But so I was skeptical when that first movie came out. I didn't like the idea of having Jim Carrey as Robotnik. He's not fat, for starters, and he just didn't seem right for the character. But I think what turned me around to the movie was the fact that they changed the design. I should say, they changed the design to what it should have looked like the first time. Because the very first design was absolutely atrocious. It wasn't Sonic, and it was ugly. But the fact that they listened to the backlash and made the modifications that they needed to do, that kind of sold me on it. That told me that they cared enough to want to placate the fans. Not even placate, satisfy. That's a better way of saying it. Here's the room. This is the room I was talking about. The bane of my childhood, and many others. Now, as a kid, I had no idea that you could do this. So I'd be locked in here for, 9, 10 minutes? And just lose all my lives. Even when I rented or borrowed the game from my sister's boyfriend's brother, who had Supersonic, I still got stuck in here. I'm not even sure how I figured it out. But back to the movie. So once they did that, once they did the redesign to make it look more like Sonic from the games, I decided, you know what, I'll give this a chance. And I watched the subsequent previews that came out, and I enjoyed them. I thought, okay, you know what, I might be able to overlook the fact that they brought him into our world and stuff that it didn't seem quite as much like the games as I would have liked. So, And I decided to give it a shot, and I saw it opening weekend with my dad, and I really liked it. I thought Sonic was Ben Schwartz. Is it Ben Schwartz? I thought he was perfect. I thought he did a really great job in the role. To be honest, I think he was preferable to who they've been using in the games. He seemed to have a little bit more spunk to him. That's one thing I think with the new Sonic games that seems to be lacking is the attitude. I realize that whole facet to the character is very much part and parcel of what the 90s were. But it is a defining characteristic of Sonic, and the fact that it's not there anymore is kind of disappointing. It needs to be brought back, I guess is what I'm saying. Even if it's with a little bit of a wink and a nod. This is another zone that I love. Actually, I love all the zones in this game. And I'm probably one of the few people in the world that doesn't hate water levels in games, especially the Sonic games. Yeah, I realize that Sonic slows down considerably when he's in water, but I think by the time we got to this game, they figured out how to work around that. And interestingly enough, all but one of the zones in this game feature water in them. Marble Garden doesn't have any water. And then Sonic & Knuckles has no water levels to speak of. No water to speak of. Even though you do get the water shield in it. But I'm looking forward to the new movie. I'm hoping that it's good. I wasn't initially thrilled with the idea of Idris Elba voicing Knuckles. It seemed kind of... I was having a hard time picturing that voice for that character. But now that I've watched the previews, I'm like, okay, yeah, this works. Let's see where they can take it. I really do feel like they cracked the code with a good video game movie for Sonic the Hedgehog. There have been decent video game to movie adaptations. Mortal Kombat from the 90s. I love. I still think it's really good. Very entertaining. Nothing great. It's one of the best of its kind. but I feel like this new one was, I don't know, it was good family entertainment. Like you don't have to with Mortal Kombat. I feel like you're probably not going to appreciate that game as much or that movie as much if you aren't a fan of the games. With the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I think you could watch that and enjoy it for what it is. Like as I mentioned before, I saw the Sonic the Hedgehog movie with my dad. He's not a gamer, but he liked it. He had a good time, and I think he's gonna try and go with me to see the new one. I know that the Chaos Emeralds are going to figure into the plot somehow. Or at the very least, the Master Emerald will, because we got Knuckles. Um, so I'm wondering if Super Sonic will show up, or Super Knuckles, or Super Tails. If they'll get to do that. Come on. There we go. Bada bum bum, 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 bada bum bum. Okay, you don't need me to accompany the music. I had a friend from church. His name was Dan. We're still friends, actually, but we used to talk about Sonic all the time. And we had this other friend, Chris, and and I remember him telling my sister or whatever. I don't know if it was making some mention of like I talked about Sonic all the time. It's like, yeah, I guess that's true. Wasn't his thing, I guess. That's all right. I was all about the video games when I was young, so still very much a gamer, just more of a retro gamer. When I was, I mentioned my love for Mario. I do remember when I was young, say kindergarten or whatever, I had wanted to be a plumber when I grew up, which, that's, again, when you're a kid, you're not very smart. It's like, I remember somebody telling, one of my sister's friends saying, it's like, you don't want to be a plumber. They, like, clean, like, poop out of the toilet and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I guess that's true, yeah. They don't rescue princesses or fight giant turtle dragon type monsters. Hard to believe we're almost through this game. It's funny because I didn't have much confidence that I'd be able to talk through this game because I'm gonna guess that by the time I finish with this will have been considerably longer than when I went through Castlevania. But somehow I've managed to find some sort of topics to ramble about. I'm wondering if maybe I should keep talking points with me like I do with my reviews. you know, with with the new Sonic movie coming out, I would like to see a re-release of the Sonic OVA. Oop, that was not part of my plan. The Sonic OVA, which as far as animated attempts at adapting Sonic is the closest to the games. Uh, I think in part because it was the same animation studio team that ah same animation. We'll say just say animation style. I don't know if it's the team or the studio, but they worked on the intro for Sonic CD, the intro and the ending, which is gorgeous. I love it, and it's got a lot of the tropes that you might find in anime that non-anime fans might find kind of obnoxious, like some of the lewd humor and things of that nature. But I don't care. I'd still like to see it. I'd like to see it in Japanese, like because that dub is not good. And maybe just a new Sonic show, one that isn't Sonic Boom, which is kind of a comedy and makes Knuckles out to be a moron. I know that the recent games have kind of turned Knuckles into being gullible, I guess. I'd like something maybe a little... I don't know if serious is... Yeah, I guess we'll say something a little more serious. One thing I love about Sonic 3, I love that Knuckles is a bad guy. And I kind of wish that they had kept him as a bad guy, even though I do like playing him in Sonic and Knuckles. It might have been more fun to just have him, being able to play him as a bad guy. But I like that he's kind of sadistic. He goes out of his way to hinder Sonic and Tails. And he's laughing about it and everything. Being too hasty. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm going to lose my shield in a minute anyway, because I got to go into water. Almost done. One more act. I think a Sonic anime... It'd be cool to do a show, maybe, that's... And I know that Sonic X, or Sonic X2, which adapt was... Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. Force of habit. Sonic X adapted some of the stuff from Sonic Adventure, but I'd like a Sonic anime that started right from the beginning and did the first game, all the Genesis games, maybe even some of the Game Gear games, which I don't feel like they get nearly enough love. I know that there's some debate over whether or not they're part of continuity, although it's weird because there's not... I don't really hear much talk about canon when it comes to Sonic anymore. It seemed like there was more discussion about that 10 years ago. Now it doesn't seem like you hear much about it. Maybe because I'm not following the discussions about that. Man, I'm really sucking today. No, it's not what I want. know they should bring back too? They haven't had in a Sonic game in a while is Knack or Fang. It was Knack the Weasel in the American games, except for Sonic Championship, which he was called Fang the Sniper, because it was one of the times where the Japanese and the Americans differed significantly. It's like he was Knack the Weasel in the U.S. and then he's Fang the Sniper in Japan, and then later an American release of Sonic Championship, he's half wolf. But that reminds me, Sonic Championship. Only Sonic game that's a fighting game, unless you count his appearance in Super Smash Bros. They should try their hand at another fighting game. I'd be interested in playing that. It's a little too clunky. It's fun for the novelty. I remember playing it and getting to the point where I could play Super Sonic, but I didn't know how to activate it, and I was so ticked when I couldn't get it. And unfortunately, Sonic Gems Collection did not feature a save state function, so you couldn't just save scum your way to Super Sonic. So I only ever did it once. So here we are, last boss. Let's see how we do. Love those drums on the boss music. I know a lot of people criticize the sound chip on the Sega Genesis, but I think it really boils down to what team is using the hardware and how, because if you look at Sega's their own games, the music on their games are fantastic. I mean, this is a prime example. Another one, Streets of Rage. Oh my gosh, the music is phenomenal on that. What's another one? Revenge of Shinobi. Yeah. It's all about how you use the chip. That's... Another instance of a first time in this series history is this is the first game where you had a final boss where you weren't facing off against him without rings. So as you can tell, I have 51 rings. Every game prior to that point, no rings. Although I don't know, this probably would have been very unforgiving to go without rings. I can imagine. Ooh, wow, that was lucky. Yes! I did it! Holla holla yeah! Now we get our ending, which is slightly modified from the cartridge version. Originally, well, you'll see. In the cartridge version, the Death Egg explodes, but because this is trying to kind of keep continuity between this and Sonic and Knuckles, they just have a big flash. But there you have it, folks. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'm planning on seeing the new movie, and I'll try and put a review up. Planning on going on vacation soon, so take care and God bless.